Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. And we have several people in the audience that I will say hello to. Chairman Jordan, welcome. We have Board Member Mr. Nipper, hello, and Mr. Zago, and a teacher, Mrs. Mitchell. Glad to have you. The first item on our agenda are two sets of minutes, a May 19th and a May 21st set of minutes. Gentlemen?
Move to approve both.
Commissioner Schaefer, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jordan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And of course, the purpose of our meeting tonight is to look at the budget request for the school board. And for the benefit of those watching on television, this committee met in joint session yesterday with the Health and Education Committee and the school board to hear the explanation of the school board's proposed budget. And they did send us a motion with a favorable recommendation, and that is what we will consider tonight. I will ask Director Odom and Mr. Sandvik to join us. And gentlemen, if you will give me just a couple of minutes, some members of the committee have asked some questions which are unique to your school budget. And one of those questions that was submitted to me was the percentage of the county's budget that is allotted to schools, including debt. And I know the finance director has worked up some numbers, and I think you have several categories that she's going to explain.
I do. A couple ways to look at this. Of the debt service that we pay, 84% of it is for schools. When you add 84% of our debt service to the three operating budgets, that ends up being 75.5% of the entire county budget is to schools. Those numbers typically are about that every year we've ever looked at it. It's about 75% relates to schools when you consider debt.
Another question that I think was unique to the school's budget, but also a question for the finance office, is to give just a brief explanation of why we have to have in our budget dollars for sharing with the city, and what those dollars actually amount to.
On the operating budget,
Mhm.
and on the
And on debt,
the
on borrowing,
service.
yes.
When we borrow, we have, especially if it is for elementary schools, we have to share a portion with the city. Educating children is a county responsibility. It's a choice for the cities. So because the county is responsible, our dollars have to be shared to where the children are. And in this county, about 15% of the children reside in the city and go to city schools. I'm not going to say reside, go to city schools. So we split property tax, sales tax, any of the local taxes we share with city schools. Of the current levy, about 10 million of that we're collecting on behalf of city schools.
And if you would like to look at the overview on your iPad, if you'll go to overview and go to, I think it's the 5th page, you will remember that Mrs. Nolan actually gave us that information at the beginning of our work sessions.
10.5 million to schools.
And the schools also get to build schools at their own discretion.
They build them
They
at their
don't
discretion.
have to accept every student that walks in. They can say, we're full, and send them to the county, and we're obligated to educate those children.
It being a county responsibility.
Yeah.
Didn't Franklin City school system give back the high schools to Williamson County a few years ago? Wasn't that part of the
Franklin Special School District?
Yes. Oh, that's a different ball of wax too, isn't it?
Mhm.
Okay. But they
Did they give back their high school?
I thought they
I think
did.
it's
I thought it was
District
all
never had high
Williamson County.
Oh, they never
I
had it.
didn't think they had high school.
I thought
It may-
Franklin High was originally part of the special school district.
The only one that I know is
Yeah.
Hamilton
didn't they do away with their city school
They did
system?
away with their city.
And Montgomery, Clarksville.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, and the other question that kept coming up, and we did have some discussion about this last night, is probably the elephant in the room, is can we do this school's proposed budget without a property tax increase? And I think this will just help us go into our agenda tonight. Gentlemen, if you notice on your printed agenda, I'm going to change the direction. Let's go to folder 141 and go to the revenue page. And I think this will help us as Mrs. Nolan explains where we are at this point.
I'll start, as we always do, our estimated revenues is $293,859.03. The proposal from Health and Ed for the appropriations for general purpose school is $306,688,721. It's a deficit of $12,830,000. The difference between last night and tonight, we contacted all the county offices that are collecting money, because that's one of the things we really wanted to see how we were going to close, but we went ahead and called them and said, where are you right now? Can you give us a number? So that we could at least kind of estimate where we think some of the revenue coming in from the May is. And then Jeff was able to go through his expenditures and then other revenues to see if he felt comfortable on the assigned beginning fund balance. And as you can see, was able to come up with over $9 million that between revenues coming in better and appropriations not being spent and being returned to the fund balance, estimating beginning fund balance at $20,050,000. Using the 12.8 million, that would bring us down to a 3% fund balance at $9,220,282.
And this is, as I say a lot, conservative budgeting. You're being conservative on our income and speculating on spending 100% of the expense.
I mean, that's what you do
Yeah,
always.
That's what you always have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to manage the county, but this is worst case scenario to some extent. I mean,
Yeah.
revenue will more than likely come in stronger than this, and expenses will more than likely come in less than this.
And that's what we always
You know,
hope for.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, if it's working here, it should work a little better than that anyway in real life. It has historically anyway.
So gentlemen, we do have a motion from the Health and Education Committee from yesterday's meeting, and they have sent to us this budget at $306,688,721, and they did send that to us with a favorable recommendation. Director Odom, do you have any comments you want to make?
Well, I think we made most of them last evening when we met with you, but we would like to answer any questions that may have arisen since we went over
Committee
the budget
members,
last evening.
questions or discussion?
Yes, ma'am. I have some. And maybe I can ask, I'm going to ask about pre-K. It's not required.
Governor funded.
Well, but everything isn't funded though. Most of it is, right?
Mhm.
Correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, roughly how much, well, we have to get buildings, right?
Mhm.
So we're paying electricity there, et cetera, right?
Well, you
Get
get-
heat
yeah.
and this type of thing.
Okay.
Well, I guess my point I'm getting at
We have
is
11?
everything I've read about pre-K, if you're a supporter of it, it's great. If you're a non-supporter of it, now it doesn't really do anything for that much, except maybe first grade or something. By the time they hit second or third, they're back, they're where they would have been anyhow, whether you had pre-K or not. That's what I'm getting at. So, my point is, my question is, how much do we actually spend of our resources for pre-K? And why I'm getting at that is it seems like everything that comes out of the Board of Education in Nashville that sounds good passes right on through the General Assembly. There's no how's it gonna be funded that comes through? It just passes on through and comes on down to our level, and we get to pay for it and find a way for it. As they go ahead and cut the sales tax on food a couple of cents, this type thing. And so we have to pick up the tab, and the only real way we got that we can increase is the property tax. So that's why I wanted to know, they're basically completely funding pre-K, how much is ours?
Whether we can quantify an exact,
I-
there's actually two kinds of pre-K. There's another one that's your special education, which
Yeah,
is
well,
required by
let's-
the federal government,
yeah.
which we have to do. I think there's 11, or about
It's
10, 11,
10, 11.
something like that. The preschools, the students there have to be free reduced. So it's your most high poverty students
Okay.
that can qualify for the program. I can tell you that many times those children do not have the same opportunities as other children, and so the whole purpose when it started was to try to give some of your most at-risk students economically to help better prepare them for school. Now, in other districts, when you talk about statewide, there may be school systems that have pre-K that includes other types of students,
The federal government gives some or something.
Right, but basically, it pretty much pays, and that's what we try to control.
Mhm.
Pretty much pays
Yeah.
for everything except probably utilities and all, very little. We're actually able to give a little supply money to teachers out of that.
And it's
State
built into
monies.
the budget. It's a reimbursement budget.
Well, this,
In our state reporting, it is combined with a special ed pre-Ks. So I can't
well, I'm looking at
give you a,
73,400. It's
Right.
page 25 in the
Mhm.
sheets that you
Mhm.
gave us, and it's got down there, it was 2 years ago, it was 2,200,000, now it's 2,400,000.
Mhm.
And it just says there, preschool program, but special ed, you can find it other places in here.
well, special ed preschool is combined with the governor's on this page.
And did not Governor Bredesen, wasn't he the first that started it? And so we're looking at back at 8 years ago or something in that neighborhood, but what I'm saying is that's plenty of time to get out information about it, whether it helps or whether it doesn't, or if it's worth what it costs.
You said last night too that you had 43% reduced,
Free and reduced.
free and reduced lunch. So how does that relate to how many people are coming into this cases?
Just those pre-K age children whose families qualify for free and reduced are eligible at the schools where
So
we
all
have
of that 43% would have been eligible for pre-K?
No, we don't open any more
Right.
than they give us monies to open.
One's saying yes and one's saying no.
Well,
so-
I was saying the same thing.
Okay.
If we have spaces.
Oh.
So we haven't applied, since we started, we have not applied for basically additional ones because we just don't have the space to do it. I can tell you, they have a long waiting list, and we probably get more calls about that than just about anything in the world. But we basically have maintained this set number
Well,
over the
it
years.
just astounds me that 43% of our students are on this program countywide. I mean, that's
Free reduced.
20,000 students.
Yeah.
Some of the schools are much higher.
You got- you got
One in your area is for sure.
About 70-something percent in yours.
In fact, most of them are up in Smyrna and Laverne, the top. But, okay, so what happens when we have to need another elementary school? And we've got however many in here, these are scattered all around the county, are they
They are.
not?
They're scattered
in their
everywhere.
rooms
Mhm.
in Smyrna Elementary, Laverne Primary, Kittrell, et cetera, that, are we gonna build a new school, or are we gonna use
Where
these
you
classrooms, or is, what I'm getting, how important is this, is what I'm getting at.
It is one of those things that you can find research that will support it, and you can find research that doesn't support it. You can argue either side of this one you want, and it's ample
Okay.
out there on both sides of it. They're so scattered apart that it will have very little impact on where you have to build that other school. because the zone that serves that school, wherever you build that, and you encircle that, it may not be over 2 of those pre-Ks that's in that area that you're talking about. So, I mean, if they were all together in one place and we were doing it as the city did sometime, bring them all to one place, that's a little bit different impact. But ours are so scattered that whether you build a school or not, it's going to be somewhat negligible. I hate to say that there, but that's pretty much
To
what
affect
it is.
Whether you can postpone it for a year or 2, that's what you say.
Well, if one classroom would solve your problem, there, or 2 classrooms, so it might.
Okay.
The kids for this fall have already been accepted for
They've
this fall's.
applied, yes, they've
I
applied.
would think. I know there,
They have.
at least 2 or 3 years ago, there was a strong program at Wilson out there, and people out there are crazy about this program. And I don't want to drive back into my district saying we cut pre-K out tonight. I might not make it, but there are people out there are very, very proud of the program at Wilson. And
And we
I
have-
think, they're already pretty much know who's in, and so I think it may be a discussion for the school board to start with about if this is something to do long-term, but I don't think I'd want to vote tonight to do away with pre-K this
And we
fall.
have received the grant approval for this next school
Yeah.
year.
My point for bringing this up was, obviously, I looked at it before, 15 minutes ago, and before I heard about the funding that was coming, and I think it's something we gotta keep in the back of our minds, because we have a state that is cutting the growth funding for fast-growing counties from 27 million to 15 million. That's what, roughly 40%, something like that, which makes a big difference to us, because we're definitely one of the fast-growing counties,
Well, these are not even included in your ADM counts, because it counts K through 12. And so when you have to start up a preschool, it's not counted in that impact of the numbers of students you have in growth. And it can't grow because we got it capped at the number of classes we've had for a number of years, so it doesn't.
I'll ask you one more, and this one is just something I saw, and I just don't understand how it happened. It's it's adult education, and it's on page 5 of this sheet. And what it is the cost for teachers. So let me get to page 5, from 2012-13.
Yes.
2012-13 says that teachers for adult ed were $290,000, okay? And now, this year, it's $405,000, and we had 10.4 positions, and I guess that must include one EA or a bookkeeper or something for it. And this year, we got 9.5, and did we mess up a couple
No.
years ago, or?
No. This grant was totally redone by the state for this current year. And we used to have Mr. Herbert, who's in charge of it. You would see him on page 14 of 31.
On your,
And we were able to, and under the terms of the grant and because of the type of work he does in adult ed, we are only charging 10% of his salary to the administrative portion of it, and the rest of it is being charged to schools. And we also got the honor of taking over Cannon County's.
Yeah, let me explain to you the process.
Yeah.
This is labor and workforce development, and no longer, they removed adult education out of the whole Department of Education. It comes through the Federal Labor and Workforce Development Funds. They ask us, in the process for the grant, they ask us to take over Cannon County because the program was having great difficulty. It does cost us a little bit out of our monies. You have to decide if whether or not those 1,100 or 1,200 GEDs that they have generated for Rutherford County, how beneficial that is to you. I mean, it's one of those things that we do that's really beyond the K-12 operation. We do have an adult high school there too. This one teacher that some people that are close will go ahead and get their diploma. In fact, graduation is Sunday afternoon, I believe, for that. But you have a commissioner too that's really involved in, who is it that come, in the GED program, works for Walmart?
Trey.
Walgreens,
Trey.
Trey Goods?
Trey Gooch.
Yes,
Trey
Trey Gooch.
Gooch.
He comes in, he's at every GED graduation, has been the speaker at it, just, and serves on the board for that and all too. So this is a service to the citizens of Rutherford County, and now a small program in Cannon County. But you have to decide whether that's what we want to do for our other citizens beyond the K-12 or not.
Well, I do want to say that what you went over with on your sheets yesterday that you handed us out at meeting down at the Board of Education, and, you know, just these couple of, at least for me, and I'm assuming that for all the rest of us, to find out, you know, we're interested in the bottom line, but now we at least find out how some of the workings are that aren't obvious to us when we look at what all we go through, what all y'all go through, I guess, and result is that we do wind up going through also when we approve your budgets. So, but I do thank you for the info that you've given us.
One thing we discussed last night was how about 85% of this budget is personnel, and a big part of that is teachers, and we discussed how with the student-teacher ratios that are required, that we really don't have any slack there with teachers. I have a few questions about other personnel, where we're adding on a few positions. One is, in this budget, we would be adding on 2 psychological personnel positions, and I was wondering if you could comment on that.
That's federal positions. It's federal, which,
It's
let's see.
line 124. It says psychological personnel, and we're adding 2 new positions there.
They're actually 2 people that were under the federal budget as a federal cut. They're already in existence that we're having to pick up in the local GP. So not only does the state do us in, so does the feds. And we took one retirement in the psychologist and told them we couldn't fill it yet. And we're just not going to fill it right now. So not only does the state hand things to us, the federal hands to us. We try to watch very closely in our race to the top funds, when we received the funds for that. We only employed one person, our data analyst, and we're able to pay basically his salary for 4 years. In order to keep that, we have to move that to local position. But we did not go out and spend our money on personnel that would be recurring cost. We purchased material, software, things that would be here after race to the top ended.
In the case of these 2 people in line 124,
They've been working for several years.
we're required to have them, or we don't want to lay them off at this point?
Both, how many psychologists do you want or need basically to it? I know some systems are expanding the number of psychologists. Right now, we're retracting at least by 1 this year.
Another line was 139, 2 new assistant principals. What schools would they be at?
The 2 that we looked at, one was the addition at Blackman for that particular growth we talked about there as we opened that 6th grade annex. The other one was we opened Stewart's Creek High School with 3 assistants. We typically have 4, and that's driven by what used to be SACs, or Advanced Ed numbers that you have for your accreditation. But we started them off last year with, again, 3. But as I mentioned last night, they're going from 1,300 something,
Right.
something over 1,600.
Because of your numbers
So
last year.
we're adding them that other position, but none other than those 2.
I've got one more question about personnel. 163, 3.4 new educational assistants.
Okay.
That is a
ESL
blend
SPED.
of special ed and English as a second language. And we are also transferring 5 regular ed EAs into one of those 2 other programs. There were some questions about the percentage increase. That group, especially the special ed EAs, just through one of those quirks that'll happen. Actually, we had 43% of them getting a step raise this year, where normally it's somewhere a quarter to a third. We had 43%. In regular ed, we had like 24%. But it's just one of those quirks of the step increases. And we'll service they have with us.
Okay, and I have one non-personnel related question. Line 315, it says contracts with vehicle owners. This is a big line item with, I guess, a proposed expenditure of around $14 million. Is this largely the bus routes?
It is our bus routes and, yeah, in that one, that's it, the owner-operator contracts we have. We are adding 5 this year. This is both special and regular ed routes.
I know last year, with last year's budget, about this time, last year, we went, you all went back into that area and trimmed out a little bit. And so I guess I did want to find out more about the bus routes. We're adding 5 routes.
Yes, we took out 2. We had that in from a recommendation from the transportation, but we took out 2 of those, so we're back at 5. So you basically will grow about a little over 50% of the students we have in Rutherford County will ride a bus. If you happen to go 1,200, you're gonna have about 600. That's about a little over 100 per bus when you look at it. So, plus trying to pick up in some cases where students are being picked up very early in the morning. You know, to try to have enough routes to where you can alleviate some of that issue.
I know it's happening in my district, and we mentioned it a little bit last night, that it's okay to kind of pick them up early, but when they're having to deliver kids back out and then get back to school to get another route, to go back again, you're having staff to stay after school to watch those kids, and because school's over. And so they're getting home at 2 hours later than everybody else is getting home. So it's, it's
If they
helping
get-
out in that
If
situation.
they get
so.
picked up early, they get home late.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
Well, we've gotten some good,
No more than an hour and a half, that's the
Yeah,
state law.
yeah,
So we
yeah.
have to, whatever we do, we have to route it to try to staff it to
Yeah.
stay within an hour and a half.
we've gotten some good news with the projections for unassigned fund balance, and so that's giving us more slack tonight than we thought we were gonna have last night. But would I be interpreting this correctly to say that the 5 new routes are costing approximately almost $500,000?
Did you put some in there for fuel possible adjustments?
Fuel
along the-
adjustments, and because of trimming back a bit last year, the number of miles, the average miles per route has crept up on us.
Mhm.
So,
I guess where I'm getting that number
Yeah.
is in line 315, the increase in this year's budget over last year's budget is almost $500,000,
Yeah.
but that,
Mhm.
that line doesn't include the fuel cost, does it?
yes, it does.
It does include
the
the fuel
and the
cost.
fuel price adjustment.
And the
we
fuel
have.
price
And we paid
adjustments.
that every month this year. Probably will next.
Let me go back to the educational assistance just a moment ago. When we do English as a second language and special ed EAs, we do a lot of students what we call inclusion. You're supposed to keep them in the normal or the regular instructional environment as much as possible, and that's a federal requirement. So we have found in some cases that for the price of one teacher's salary, we can employ 2.5 EAs or something like that. You kind of get into the dynamics of numbers. They work under either an ESL teacher or a SPED teacher, so they may, the student may in one class, and we try to cluster them, 4 to 5 special ed together, put the EA in there with them to work with that. And you have to have somebody in there because of service hours. As part of the special ed, there are options for special ed based upon the service hours that particular student needs. So it's a balance between the two. You could not afford to hire enough teachers to put some every time you have another student in a class to do that. So we've just found that it works well for us to do a balance between the two.
Does the EA position help you on your student-teacher ratio?
No, sir. It does not. And neither, it wouldn't help you a lot with the teacher number in an inclusion type classroom. The special ed teacher will help in a comprehensive development classroom where the kids stay with that teacher, no seriously handicapped, stay with that teacher all day. That helps your pupil-teacher ratio, ever how many they serve would have it. But basically where students are out in the building and being served in that particular purpose, it doesn't help you particularly at all.
On your EAs, how many ESL roughly EAs do you have?
Uh,
Between 50 and 70.
Yeah, and that was a very interesting thing because we're the third largest ESL population in the state. And the state went from 45 per teacher to 40 per teacher. I was watching it in the legislature 4 years ago, 4 years ago. And the physical note was, no real charge, no
Yeah.
physical thing. It took us 5 additional
Yeah.
teachers in Rutherford County to pull that off. It was very involved for Rutherford County, but as the state as a whole, when the physical note attached to the bill was no particular physical note attached. So, for us, it made a difference. So it's misleading very often when they pass these bills if they don't look at individual counties to do that. No more money is to do it, just do it.
Yeah. They call the county with no ESL population.
Director Oda, how many languages or ethnicities are represented in our
Last
county?
time I asked something like 65.
How many illegals would you estimate? that are
We
listed?
we cannot ask
Yeah.
that question.
That wasn't my question, though.
I
My
have no clue.
estimate.
I have no clue. Oh, it's illegal to even ask.
Lisa, they're beginning the budget. Their ending fund balance was, if I understand this correctly, 22,050,000. And then they have to keep 3% in their budget ending
Maintain
fund
it.
balance. They have to maintain 3%, which is the 9.2.
Just 9. 3% of the estimated appropriation,
Oh, of the appropriation.
Yes.
It would be the
the 9 million.
9 million. Okay. And so, are you saying the remainder of this is going back in to help this budgetary
Yes.
situation?
Absolutely.
All right, so what's the difference that we're looking at then? Is it the 12?
12 million.
So we're still looking at
We're
12 million?
still on- That's what you're pulling out of your fund balance.
That's revenue, that's
Yeah,
expense.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, I was hoping that.
The only thing that's gonna do is you cut expenses.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we, or make up revenue.
Okay, give us your wisdom then of where we come up with this $12 million.
Well, you're coming up with it out of their fund balance. Again, that's what I said last year, last night. We do this again, and we're down to the wire.
Mhm.
And with all budgets, just like this one, we hope revenues come in better, and we end up. We typically do not spend every dollar that we
Mhm.
appropriate.
Right, right.
We just don't, never have. So you hope it comes back, and that we don't end at 9 million.
Right.
But we have the heartache. I can look at it now. It's no different than when we adopted a budget 10 million out, and we have the heartache again.
Sure.
And here we're at 12, and
Sure.
we're still at 12.8. We're gonna say, okay, let's try again. Let's see if we can do it.
But that's what we do.
That's what we do.
We don't want to overtax our citizens to
We
feel
don't.
comfortable up here. We got plenty of money to blow right through. I mean, we
Yeah.
just have to cut corners and not overtax anybody and keep the school system open. And it looks to me like we've got a window here to do this, and next year we'll be right here.
We'll be-
Majority of us, you can hang out in the audience, are welcome to join us. But we'll just have to do it all over again next year.
And I just bring up some comments that I heard last night, is that if the growth is more, there's more children that come in, then they can explain again, what does that do to their budget?
Yeah.
You know.
But about half the cost will come from the state, and about half would have to be made up by the county. I mean, that's.
Unless they.
30 to 40% will come from the state. Of the state share, we'll pick up
The
60 to 70% of the state, and we'll have to cover the local.
Right.
I mean,
Well, the
underfunded mandate is just, it is an ongoing, every year item for us that we have growth, which is most every year.
Mr. Oldham has come in and taken the bull by the horns and has done a fantastic job. And Jeff Sandvik, I've just appreciated him ever since he's came on and started, at it. There's a better communication with the school board and the county commission. There's a better, everything's above board and up on the table. It's made a difference in my 24 years of being here. And it used to not be that way. It really used to not be that way. It was a struggle getting through a budget, and we all didn't really feel good about it after it was done, you know. But these past 4 or 5 years, with growth being a little lax than what we've seen growth in, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, it's given us an opportunity to get a little bit of wiggle room. I hate to say that because it's probably getting ready to tighten up again and not have any wiggle room. But we already look at y'all have always looked ahead, and the county commission has worked together on, you know, building schools, and we've got a little wiggle room now in some high school, just a little bit here, just a little bit, and then, you know, later on we're looking probably elementary or middle. We talked about that again last night. Looking through your budget, it's really, really, I didn't see the beforehand budget, and I mentioned that last night too, of what you went through to get it to here. I talked to this gentleman, you know, a while last night afterwards, and, you know, and he shed some light on some things too. And it's a good budget. It's every time we go through a budgetary situation up here, we've never all agreed on a particular budget as a whole. It's just so many different line items and things that we sometimes don't agree with. But looking at this thing, I'm very proud that we can do this. It puts you on the borderline of what your ending fund balance is going to be for the year. But then again, it's not the worst thing in the world. It can always be worse. And we've seen that in other school systems where they don't go and get the kids because they can't run the buses. Blah, 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 blah. A lot of different things. Just a lot of different things. And y'all are staying on top of it and doing a good job. And I'm very proud to be a part of it and to be a taxpayer and a citizen and kids in the school using the school system. It's a good system. And you've got good numbers coming out the end. And those folks are staying here and working here and you are teaching them again, you know. So keep up the good work, and like I said, it's again another tough budget, but a budget that I can agree with and vote positively on. So
Is that a motion?
Is that the motion?
I make a motion to approve this budget of the
306, 688?
Yes.
721?
the number she said.
Okay. We do have a motion,
Second.
second by Commissioner Baum. Discussion, further discussion, Commissioner Schaefer.
3.01% is where we're sitting right now.
Mhm.
And is it worth looking at this, since this last year was a real cold year? What I'm saying is, you know where I'm getting, the electricity, the
Oh,
natural gas stayed the same.
Mhm.
So,
Mess with that.
is it better to, to give yourself a little more cushion than 3.01%? And,
Absolutely.
well,
Yeah.
what I'm getting at, should you change the amount of budgeted for electricity?
Anything I take out, my comfort level that we will be able to handle the students we anticipate crashes. I mean, we
Everything
have hit-
shifts when you move.
We
Well,
have-
okay,
well, we
if
have
it's in
hit
there, you can come
everything.
back and shift electricity money to something else.
If I
That's
don't
what-
need the electricity
Okay.
money.
All right, that's what I was wanting to get at.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing we have concentrated on throughout the years is, for me, being able to reassure the superintendent that we will have enough teachers to cover our growth.
That's why we exist.
And
If we miss that
Yeah.
mission, we've missed it. You know,
If you run out of electricity money, out of $306 million, you can scrounge it up in there somewhere. They may have to not mail some letters or have stationery or something like that.
well, we only have $33,000
Yeah.
posted.
Well, I
Pay
think
much
that's
on
something.
that.
An ending fund balance, and when the books close at the end of the year, there's usually a little additional money.
Yes, and,
And that will go in on top of
Yeah.
it.
yeah, but,
16% increase right there. There's
we have a tight budget this year.
a age room there. If they have to.
We're not gonna have to,
I won't
you
mention
can't come to
it. Ask
anything
them
with us to
afterwards.
approve anything from unassigned fund balance, are you?
Well, that's our goal, because we know we have to have it for the next year.
Okay.
Commissioner P,
Since we're gonna have several votes here, I'm gonna go ahead and read my conflict of interest. Because my wife is a school teacher for Rutherford County Board of Education, I have a conflict of interest in the proposals about to be voted. However, I declare that my argument and my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents.
Any further discussion relative to the motion? Okay. Would you call the roll, please?
Well, Madam Chairman, I better, my wife does
Oh.
work for the school board. I don't know, any of these increases here aren't gonna affect her the year she's got because she's not due a step this year or anything like that.
$120 insurance.
Is that it? Okay, that's it. Okay, so my wife is an employee of the Board of Education of Rutherford County, and so perceived of a conflict of interest in the proposal about to be voted. However, I declare my argument in my vote answer only to my conscience and to my obligation to my constituents and the citizens this body represents.
Any further discussion relative to the motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, gentlemen, if you will go to folder 143. This is the Central Cafeteria Fund. 143, the motion from Health and Ed was to approve the centralized cafeteria fund budget with $17,630,000 in revenues and $18,333,292 in expenditures.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner P, thank you,
Second.
and seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Any further discussion?
I'm gonna ask another question, because it's something I've always wondered. Why does the fund balance have to be what it says it is? That comes from the state, right?
You know,
Doesn't
there's a state or federal requirement for that too,
it?
right?
It's state, isn't it?
I was thinking it was federal.
Is it federal?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's federal.
Okay.
Y'all been as creative as you can, I mean, with that, because we are doing our upgrades to our kitchen and all, where we used to pull it out of
Right.
tax base, but they're paying for the new hoods and things like that as they come to pass, so.
And we made several replacements in that. We had to upgrade
Yeah.
foods and all the cooking, frying stuff.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm.
Any further discussion relative to this motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, if you will go to folder 177, this is the Capital Projects Fund. And if you will remember last night from Health and Education, they had a motion as well as including the list of projects. And you will see we have a corrected number.
Oh, yeah. Just on the revenue, very slight change to $2,421,216.
So that is somewhat of a different number than that was in the document last night. And if you'll flip one more page, you do have a listing of the projects.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Okay, gentlemen, I'm going to ask that we go down to other business while we have Director Odom and Mr. Sandvig with us. And if you will remember last night at Health and Ed, there was a motion to fund a purchase of 5.5 acres adjoining Whitworth Buchanan Middle School for a 6th grade annex from the Maples Family Partnership at $70,000 per acre and up to $2,500 in surveying cost. and Mrs. Nolan has a bit of a deadline that she needs to meet.
And I know that this is not a full commission vote on this, but our official statement on this bond issue is going to be, really needs to be printed today. It's going to be printed tomorrow. So if we allocate part of the contingency money that I spoke to you last night, it's going to change the amount that we send to the city, and that number is in the official statement. So I would like a vote from you tonight whether or not you agree to use a portion of that contingency. I told you 500,000 last night. Our contingency is 677,805. So it would take, to get their numbers, and I added a little bit for closing cost, would be taking 412,000 out of that. And part of that is 20,000 of it will go to the city of Murfreesboro for their share.
How much will?
20,000, about 20,000.
Well, when you mentioned this last night, I wanted to know where you came up with that number for your contingency.
How it happened?
Yes,
Since
we didn't, I mean, I don't recall it being brought up to us.
It wasn't. I mean, we sold the bonds, and it is a factor of people wanting our bonds and are willing to pay premium for our bonds, which kind of, in essence, they're giving you your interest ahead of time. So sometimes we resize, but this one, because it was so close, and it was pretty close, and we thought, well, that definitely, we would put it in a line to be allocated to projects later.
Well, I mean, don't we normally give you a plateau?
Mm-hmm. And it was within that plateau. I mean, we did not go over.
Okay.
We could have reduced the 31,300,000 by 600,000, but we had some discussion about this maybe potentially happening, so we just said that being a relatively small amount of it, we'd like to reserve that for that potential need.
Well, the reason I even mention that is most people don't know that when we borrow money like that, we've got a certain time period that we have to spend that money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can't sit on that and draw interest. Of course, it'd be laughable thinking that we
Yeah.
don't make any money off of that drawing interest, but.
We do try to spend down within 2 years.
So we try to keep those bond issues as low as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, another thing I want to point out, you know, everybody says, well, we're so in debt, my great-grandchildren are going to be paying these debts off. 20 years from today, if we don't incur any other debt, everything will be paid off. Actually, a little less than that. Because of the way
And
we
over
budget.
half will be paid in 10 years for buildings that are gonna last 40 years.
So,
So,
But, well, my point being is, I think we're trying to be as good as stewards with the county's money and the taxpayers' money as we can be. You know, we don't frivolously give these guys this money unless they show good reason that they need it. So, thank you.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Jordan.
Over 40 years. Riverdale and Oakland are 42 years old. They're still going strong.
How about Central?
Yeah, Central.
Commissioner Sandlin.
I fussed about the price a little bit last night, and I'll fuss about it again tonight. I'm gonna vote for it, but it's just the point that we took sewer out there. I'd rather had a little more of a family price, you know, a friendship kind of price. Hey, we help develop your property kind of price. You know, help us out a little bit here. Even a donation, you know. Some people laugh at that, but you know, there's families out there that want to donate property for schools and for school expansions and stuff because they'd rather see that than to see subdivisions or something else happen or buy cigarettes and beer here kind of place, you know. So I vent that just a little bit, but because it's a little expensive, and but I know we need the land. We've got an avenue here to purchase that land through this bond issuance. I just, I feel better by saying the things I said, so I'll still be voting for the project, though.
Question I have is you've already negotiated what you feel is the best price you can get for
Gary
it.
negotiated with them several weeks, you know, with this. And they just saw the ability they could sell it by lots, like I said last night, at this much or more. And they just basically said no.
How about if we agree to call it the Maple Annex, would that to give us a 5,000 an acre off like the last time?
Gentlemen, we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So the motion is to purchase the property and use the bond proceeds.
We are
With
clear
the
that,
bond proceeds.
okay, and add
That's what
that,
Joe
use
Frank
the,
said, exactly.
I thought that's what it said.
and use the bond proceeds, okay. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Have we done everything we need to do with your budget?
I think so.
And you can stay here with us just for a few minutes. My next question is going to be.
Won't leave. Sandvik won't leave.
I know, I was going to say, Mr. Sandvik will definitely stay till the end. Gentlemen, we do have on our agenda to review any other budgets as necessary. Is there anything that you would like to discuss tonight? Otherwise, we're going to be back here next Wednesday, June the 4th, to finalize whatever is going to publication. But I'll give you an opportunity to review any budget as necessary tonight, or if you want to think about it, we can also have some more time on Wednesday, June 4th,
We're also gonna be here Thursday, June 5th.
and here on June 5th, yes.
Our
Yes.
regular meeting's the 5th.
Yeah, do we need that meeting on the 4th, or could we do
Or do you
that on the
want to
5th?
combine it on the 5th?
I don't know, I mean, if it's gonna take us 20 minutes, it's a shame paying all of us to sit here and costing money, but if we need
Is
to
that
go
just for
through a
publication?
substantial
It's for
part.
publication. I mean, I don't think we're going to work that night to do anything.
And our regular meeting is on the 5th.
I don't know how long our agenda is on the 5th, but that on the 4th, are we talking about,
We'll just have to roll
are we
that
coming
in.
back with our salaries and our, that
HD
type
cameras and
everything.
cameras and all the stuff that we said
All
we're gonna
that's-
bring back up at the end? There was like
Whatever
4 or
you
If you
5
need
need,
to
if
be
you
a
points.
need to,
publication.
but all of that is still in there, yes.
We might ought to have that meeting, I just hate to bring us all in for a 15-minute meeting.
Well, that's some discussion that we were gonna do, though, as far as,
I got a list of some things I haven't brought up tonight that would be under other business, but if you want to stay tonight, we can, or we can come back next week.
Let's do that on the 4th.
We'll do it on the 4th.
Okay, if you will consider that and bring that back for the 4th.
Then Mr. Sandvik can go home this way too.
Okay, so our next meeting is Wednesday, June the
We'll be
4th
back on
at
the
5:30. Is there any other business that needs to come before our committee? Okay, we'll meet back here Wednesday, June the 4th at 5:30. Thank you, gentlemen, we are adjourned.